friends, my name is Blake Shook, and I've gone from 2 hives in my backyard to over 30,000 hives. And my goal in these videos is to take all the lessons I've learned, often hard lessons, along the way and distill them down to practical tips for you as a small-scale beekeeper. When I'm checking hives after I've harvested honey, going through summer, I'm really looking for just a couple of main things. I'm looking for the bee population, because that's a clue as to the health of the hive. I'm checking on the queen and how well she's laying and what her brood pattern looks like. And then the big thing I'm looking at is making sure I have a mite treatment on the hive, or I've treated for mites and that's working. And then finally, I'm looking at food stores. The big two are really food stores and making sure mites are under control. I usually check bees in the summertime in the morning or in the evening, just because it is so hot outside. And that's for my own sake, but then also for the bees. You know, I don't really want to disturb them when they're trying to fan hard and keep the hive cool. So with this hive in particular, you know, the first thing I always do when I open up a hive is I look down between the frames. They've got about, 7 to 8 frames full of bees in this hive. And I'm not gonna go deep. I'm just gonna open the hive and look at some of these frames on the edge to see, hey, do they have uncapped cells of nectar or syrup? How much pollen do they have? How much brood do they have? How's the bee population look compared to the last time? I am feeding these hives because we took most of the honey away. So I've got lots of frames that look like this, which is a great frame, capped brood, capped honey up in the corners, and then uncapped honey or syrup there in the middle. So I want to see that. I want to see that they've got, about 30 pounds of excess honey. And then I'm going to just check on the brood and make sure that the brood looks okay, and I've got brood. So you can't see it in the video, but this frame has lots of eggs in it and larvae, so that's always great to see. And our goal over the summer is really just to help the bees maintain their strength. I don't really expect them to grow much because it's a winter dearth. It's a summer dearth, and they aren't going to be growing a whole lot. I've got eggs, I've got larvae. The brood pattern isn't great, but honestly, I don't expect it to be that great during the summer. I have my Apivar strips in the hive to treat for varroa mites. And one thing I'm not seeing hardly any of is I'm really not seeing hardly any pollen. So when I look through this hive, I always want to see a cumulative half frame of pollen. So if I were to add up all the frames of pollen throughout the whole hive, I want to see at least a half a frame. And I'm really seeing very, very little. Here, I'll show you what I'm seeing in most cases. So I've only seen a couple of frames that have a little bit of pollen on them. Let's see if I can get to where you can see it. So if you look in the dead center of that frame, and I don't think you're going to be able to see it really well, I see a few cells full of pollen. If you're ever in doubt as to whether something is capped honey or pollen, let me grab my hive tool. Just take your hive tool and dig in a little bit and see if it's liquid or if it's solid. If it's solid, then it's going to be pollen. So like this cell right here, I can kind of tunnel in and look, I've got this, I've got this pollen on my hive tool here. If it's liquid, so here's some capped cells, it's liquid underneath, well, that's just honey. So you can dig in a little bit if you're unclear on what's what. But I'm really seeing almost no pollen, and that means that I'm probably going to go ahead and give this hive a pollen patty. Again, not because I'm trying to get them to grow like crazy, but I'm really wanting them to at least maintain their bee population so that they've got plenty of bees going into winter so that they can properly overwinter. So I'm just going to do a really quick check in the bottom box here. I've got a pretty decent bee population, making sure I'm not missing any big frames of brood or anything down below, or any frames full of pollen. And again, I've got some decent brood, but almost no pollen in the bottom box either. And I really only have 4 or 5 frames of honey in this hive. So I'm going to feed this hive a couple gallons of syrup. I'll give them about half a gallon or so per week for the next 4 weeks or so. And then I'm going to give them probably 1 pollen patty every 7 to 10 days. And they should be good to go throughout the summer. If this video is helpful, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.